What's going on, folks? Good morning, everyone. All right, so a couple days ago, I put out a video about how I deal with leash reactivity or leash aggression, okay? It was a little bit on the long side, but it's something that so many people struggle with. So we're just trying to put information out there that may help people. And before we go any further, let me say this. If you're an everyday dog owner and you're struggling with these types of issues, which so many people are, the best thing you can do is find a really experienced trainer that has dealt with these things successfully for a good amount of time. That's the best thing you can do. But let's be honest, not everyone can afford good dog training. So if you're someone who gets a dog and you can't afford good dog training, then you have to be that much more committed into educating yourself as much as you can, everything you can about the animal, about the dog, how it thinks, how it behaves. You have to do everything you can to develop the dog that you want instead of waiting that there's problems and then you have to fix them, because as an average dog owner, guys, it's going to be very difficult, because let's be honest, so many dog trainers fail when it comes to aggression or reactivity. So that's your best bet, okay? Finding a professional that can really help you. A lot of these things we talked about. The next video, we talked about the use of space, how I use space, how dogs use space. And these are things that the everyday dog owner can implement on their own to make significant changes. And that's what's important, right? And today I put out a post. We'll talk about that a little bit, and we'll hit the next subject when dealing with reactivity or aggression, and that's you, yourself. You know, the information that you signal to the dog by the things you do or don't do, okay? So I put out a post this morning on Facebook. It's not new, it's old, but I think it's still very important. And basically the gist of it is, you know, whether you think you are or not, if you have a dog, you are training. You just have to decide, are you training for good or are you training for bad? Because everything we do, guys, these dogs pay attention to and they learn from it. So it's real important that we do the right things, especially in the early stages when we're trying to develop the dog, you know, because life's a lot better for the average dog owner if we create the dog we want instead of fixing behaviors down the road, all right? So what do I mean by that? We always go back to inside the home, right? Everything we do when we're with that dog, we are training. So you have to ask yourself, is this helping the dog or is it hurting the dog? Am I sending the right messages or am I sending the wrong messages, okay? So start paying attention to that stuff. Now, let's take it a little further and let's talk about how we respond to outside stimuli. Stimuli, that's a very scientific word for me. Let's talk about how we respond to certain stimuli when we're outside with the dog, right? So let's say you have a young dog, a puppy or a young dog, or just a new dog that you adopt from a shelter, you know, hasn't been exposed to much. If you get yourself a puppy, guys, at this stage, the most important thing you can do is expose your dog to the real world, okay? If you do that properly, you don't have to deal with a lot of these problems down the road. Now, a lot of people talk about socialization. I don't like that word because most people, at least a large number of people, believe socialization is taking your puppies out to places to play with other dogs or dog parks or daycare. That couldn't be further from the truth. In my opinion, those things are a killer and you put a lot of risk on causing some serious long-term damage to your dog because you never know what you're going to run into, okay? So I prefer to talk about exposing a puppy to the real world. Everything that you can expose that puppy to in a positive way without anything bad happening is going to affect that dog in a good way as it grows older, all right? I answered a post today that other people were commenting on. Someone asked about a young dog. I think it was a 4-month-old dog, you know, if they need to turn to an e-collar to correct their young dog at the dog park when it's getting aggressive with other dogs. That's insanity, guys. That's insane. First of all, your 4-month-old dog should not even be thinking of receiving corrections or using an e-collar at this point, and that dog should not be at a dog park. So you're already starting off in a 100% wrong direction, and I can guarantee you're going to have issues as that dog matures. When it becomes 8, 9 months old, you're going to see all kinds of bad behaviors coming out, okay? On top of that, a lot of people say their vet said don't take their puppies out till all their shots are received. Insanity. Doesn't mean your dog has to be at a park where it's loaded with dogs and you know what's out there. But guys, you can't wait. From 8 weeks old, when you pick up that puppy, till about 16, 20 weeks old, if you only do one thing, that one thing should be taking that puppy out every place you can and making sure nothing bad happens. Expose it to everything. If you do that, it's going to benefit you greatly, okay? Now, let's talk about how you respond to things. So people will get their young dog or their puppy and you start going for a walk. With a lot of these dogs and puppies, when you see big, scary, noisy things, some puppies or some dogs will react a little fearful. Garbage trucks, school buses, the UPS truck, all these things, when you're walking down the road and one of these trucks or anything like that, a big construction truck, they're loud, they make a lot of noises. The air brakes, I've seen air brakes on school buses and tractor trailers really freak dogs out, okay? And what happens, what's very common is when you're walking down the road with your puppy or your dog and one of these vehicles makes a big loud noise or it's coming down and the puppy or dog starts getting a little freaky, right away people want to address the dog. They want to start coddling the dog. I've seen people pick their dog up. Guys, you can't do that. That's really, really sending the wrong message, okay? You don't want to pay attention to that dog at all when he's showing you those signs, those fear signals, because it's unknown. A lot of times it's just the first time they're experiencing those things. So that dog's going to look to you for everything at that stage, and it's your job to be as cool as a cucumber and continue moving forward like there's nothing there, because that dog is paying attention to you. And how you respond to it is going to affect that young dog or that puppy greatly, okay? So for me, when I start to walk my puppies on leash for the first time, or whether they're off leash or on leash, it doesn't matter, and something maybe is a little unknown to them, they start acting weird, they don't get a response from me, and to me, it's just like it's not even there. I just keep moving forward. Because when the dog looks to you and it sees you're not changing your attitude, your demeanor, there's no fear in you, you're just acting like you always do, that sends a very strong signal to the dog, and they learn to follow. They learn to follow and they learn to put their trust in you, and that's very important, guys, all right? So let's take it a step further now. Years ago, I didn't do any kinds of obedience, no e-collars, none of that stuff, no tricks, none of the fancy stuff, right? And my first dogs were all trained on a leash and a flat buckle collar and a long walk every day. I did a lot of walking with my dogs. They got exposed to the real world, and that was the extent of my training. And I had really well-behaved, reliable off-leash dogs, right? So I live in Kentucky. So one of the negative things about Kentucky is people allow their dogs to roam free all the time, all right? Some people just treat them, like livestock, and they're on the property, but there's no fencing, they're not on leash. And so a lot of times when you go for a walk around here, there's a good chance that a dog's gonna come running off a property and kind of charge you, right? Very, very common. When I used to do a lot of walking with my dogs, and I don't do that nearly as much as I should be now, and I miss it. Let's say me, Bruno, and Ben, dog that most of you don't know, let's say we're walking down the road, and doesn't matter if they're on leash or off leash. Very often, we would have dogs run off the property, come charging, barking, and growling. Totally normal around here, right? My dogs would never respond to that. They might look over at the dogs a little bit, but what they respond to is me. And I never paid that any attention. I know it's just natural for a dog to do that, and it's a bluff. Nothing's going to happen. Literally nothing ever happened, okay? Not one time were we attacked by a dog. Because what happens is, when I show my dogs and the dog coming to us that I don't really care about that, I don't stop, I don't talk to my dogs, I don't ask for commands, I just continue to move forward. And continuing to move forward in a very confident state of mind sends incredible signals to your dogs. Sends incredible signals to the dog coming out too. And what would happen all the time is those dogs would just stop, watch for a minute or two, and then turn around and walk back. That's how dogs operate. That's how they behave. You understand? Now, with that being said, I've talked about this before too. One morning, real early in the morning, still pitch dark out, 4 in the morning, I'm getting ready to go deer hunting. And I go and going to get in my little red pickup truck that's still sitting in my driveway right now that my wife really wants me to get rid of. And just as I get in my truck, 4 dogs come out of the field next to my house and just charge me, and extremely aggressive. I had never seen these dogs before. I didn't know where they came from, but they definitely had bad intentions. It scared the crap out of me, really shook me up. So that day when I got home, my wife used to be a big runner. Not that big. She's like 5'10", 100 and something pounds. I won't give her weight. I just mean like she ran a lot, big runner, not size-wise, right? Love her size. Those curves, beautiful. She's so beautiful, so sexy. Sorry. I lost track, okay? So I got home and I told her, you can't go for a run till I figure out where these dogs came from. I got to do something about this. Like, that would have been really bad if she encountered them on a run. So I told her, no more running. So that same night, I go out for a walk with Ben and Bruno, like I always did, except this time I took my metal baton that's assigned to me from my job, right? Metal, it's called an ASP. And it's a collapsible metal baton. And when you do this to it, it extends, and it's a very deadly weapon, very, very heavy steel. I took that with me because I was concerned about those dogs. So now I'm walking, and I'm getting towards the end of my walk in my old neighborhood, where when I got to the top of the road, I'd have to turn around and come back. And as we're walking, getting towards the end, we're passing a house, and I hear the nails on the driveway and the growling and the barking, and here comes a dog running out of the dark. Because of what happened this morning, I kind of freaked out. I stepped back, I opened the ASP, and I was ready for combat, right? Well, at that moment, my dogs went berserk. I couldn't control them at that point because they believed there was real danger. Not because of the dog charging us, we experience that all the time, but because of my reaction, okay? And once I reacted like that, they truly felt that there was a serious threat. And so they went right into mode. And most people know Bruno as a big, beautiful, loving, and he was. I've only seen him have to do that a couple of times in his 11 years, and it was impressive. But it was hard for me to stop them at that moment because they were very committed to protecting us, right? It wasn't that group of dogs. So the owner came out and he started yelling for the dog and gave us enough time. We just kept walking, but it took me a minute to get my dogs under control. So now I'm right at the end of the walk, so I have to turn around and come back past that house. But at this point, the dog was kind of walking away from the owner, and he had to walk down the road and get a hold of it. So he grabbed the dog. It was just a big chocolate lab, but he wasn't very friendly. He was kind of a mean dog. And so he has his lab by the collar, and we're walking past them, going back the way we just came. And as we're walking past them, my dogs were fine. They have now settled down and they're calm. As we get past them, we weren't that close, I gave it plenty of space. But just as we get next to them, that dog made one little move toward us, and in a flash, Bruno snatched that dog and flipped him over. It was like lightning. I couldn't believe how fast. And Bruno picked him right off the ground and slammed him down. He never broke skin, never hurt him, but he let that dog know it's not going to happen. I got this. And man, it was impressive. It really, really was impressive. The reaction from my dogs was not created from that dog coming out for us. It was created because of my reaction, because of the fears that I had from what happened earlier in the evening. You understand what I'm saying? That's very powerful in the dog world. I'll give you another example. A client. I show up in Nashville to meet this young couple. They open the door, and they're very, very fit young couples. I mean, super fit, like competitive fitness people. And I say that for a reason, because it does matter. Because when I see that, right away I know I'm dealing with people that are not lazy and they're very committed. And people like that excel in the fitness world are usually very type A, which can be very good, right? So I never met them. I didn't even know what kind of dog they had. I show up to see and they have a husky. And I'm like, oh, geez, okay. What back then, it wasn't my favorite breed to work with. I had dealt with some difficult ones. So I'm like, okay, let's see what we could do. We do that first lesson. And, you know, when I leave, I give them a lot of things I want them to work on. Back then, I used to give people too much to work on, but I gave them everything I needed them to do, and I just crossed my fingers, right? Well, when I went back week 2, they opened the door, and we go in to talk, and we go outside, and I couldn't believe what they have done. They had done beautiful things with this dog. Like, I was truly impressed. And I told them, I said, I got to be honest, guys, I wasn't expecting that much from you guys with this dog, but I'm blown away what you did. And I think it was the boyfriend. He said, well, we're both very type A people, so if you tell us to do something, we're going to do it. I was like, man, it shows. He goes, we're having one problem though. I said, what's that? He said, when we go for a walk, he's doing great. There's no more pulling, no nothing, except this one house down the road has a dog in the yard that goes crazy, and when that happens, we can't control him. I said, okay, let's see what we could do. Let's get to it. So we go for a walk, and I'm allowing them to walk the dog, and he's just doing beautiful. And as we're getting closer to the house, I said, okay, let me have the leash. And we start walking, and we go past the driveway, and they were right. As soon as we did, that dog came running. It was fenced in. It didn't get to us. And that dog went nuts. So when he came running out, causing a scene, we just stopped. We just stopped, and I did nothing. I put a little bit of leash pressure, I think, for the dog to sit, if I'm not mistaken. And what I did was I started talking to the owners, the guy and the girl, and we just had a conversation. And I do this with my clients a lot that are struggling with their dog. We'll just talk, and usually not about dog stuff or that situation, okay? Because what happens, guys, is when you can get clients talking that are struggling, that are nervous, that are insecure, and really having a hard time with their dog, when you can get them talking about something that they love, or something that they're interested in, or something that they're interested in learning about, it takes their mind off all the problems with the dog, and it allows them to relax. And when we do that, when we have that conversation, you watch the dogs just chill out and change, okay? And as we're talking, it took no time at all. I mean, literally, like, you know, a few seconds to where that dog stopped barking. Our dog never reacted, just never reacted, because he was trusting me with the leash. He was 100% trust. He knew he didn't have to do that. But because our dog didn't react, that dog stopped barking right away and just walked away. You know, didn't faze him, because now he's not getting the reaction he wants. So before, when he comes, he's cooped up in a yard, right? I don't care how big your backyard is. It's not stimulating enough for a dog. It's no different than a fishbowl. That's all it is, right? And I've heard that, I can't remember who said that first, but it's a very good analogy. It's just a big fishbowl for a dog. And so that was entertainment for him. When he would blow up and get other dogs riled up, that gives that guy some kind of physical and mental stimulation. But now it was no longer rewarding because our dog wasn't doing anything. So that changes very fast. You know, they went on to do really awesome things with that dog. But again, it all goes back to how we respond to things. That's why it's so important, guys. That's why those structured walks are so important to me too. So most of the people that deal with reactivity and aggression, not all, but a lot of them, they've never really mastered that structured walk from an early age where everything becomes neutral, right? When my dogs see dogs, they don't, it's like, just like, hey, you know, it's neutral. When they see people, it's neutral. If I stop to talk to someone, they're not excited to see other people and want to pull to them to get attention. It's neutral. It should be like the dog sees them, they accept them, but it doesn't change anything because their world is based off me and what we are doing. You know, there's nothing more that interesting to them, and that's it. So everything we do inside the home, the dog is paying attention to. It's learning from you. So you have to pay attention to what you're doing. And when you get outside in the real world, your actions, your attitude, your mood, your demeanor, it's being followed by that dog. And so what signals are you telling it? What signals are you sending to it, okay? How you respond to those outside stimuli is how your dog's going to learn how to respond to it. So you have to set the example, okay? You have to set an example, guys. They're paying attention to everything. So these last few videos, including this one, we're just trying to touch on things that can help people that are struggling with the reactivity and the leash aggression. All right, and from the first two, the response has been overwhelming because it's not fun, exciting, sexy stuff, but it's real world things that so many people struggle with. And we have to be realistic. And when you're working with someone, you have to know your audience. It's really important, guys. It's just like if I'm coaching kids and you know, flag football, basketball, whatever, you have to know your audience. I know some guys that know a particular sport really well. They're phenomenal coaches. They're phenomenal what they do. When it comes to teaching young kids, everything they say and do, nothing penetrates. It goes over their head because they don't know their audience. They're not thinking about their audience, who they're delivering the information to. That's really important. And it's the same thing with the dogs. The owners, you have to know your audience. Not all owners are on the same playing field. You have to understand their strengths and their weaknesses and play to them. And you have to change things to make it possible and realistic for them long term, okay? Long term. Same things with the dog, guys. Same thing with the dogs. So everything we do is being watched and they're learning from it inside the home and outside the home. So I hope that gives certain people out there that little light bulb. With the past two videos, so many of you said, oh my gosh, that really helped because I just thought of something I'm doing or not doing. That's what we want out of these. If it could help one person get everything straight with their dog, make your life better, then it's well worth it, okay, guys? If you think of a subject, especially pertaining to the reactivity or aggression, that you want to talk about, comment here and let's see if we can address that, okay? Peace.